They seemed like the perfect couple. Ethan, a kind-hearted and ambitious software developer, and Cassandra, a decorated police detective known for her brilliance and unshakable confidence. To everyone around them, they were a power couple destined for a bright future together. But behind closed doors, their picture-perfect romance was cracking. When Ethan made the decision to walk away from their relationship, he thought he was taking the first step toward freedom. What he didn't know was that this choice would set off a chain of events more chilling than any crime Cassandra had ever investigated. The end of their relationship wasn't just a breakup. It was the start of a nightmare. A nightmare that would spiral into obsession, terror, and ultimately, a tragic and horrifying end. This is not just a story of heartbreak. This is a story about how love can turn into something far darker, something dangerous. It's about what happens when the person sworn to uphold justice loses control of their own mind and crosses the line from protector to predator. How does someone so accomplished, so trusted by the community, let their obsession drive them to unthinkable actions? How does a relationship that begins with passion and devotion spiral into a tragedy so horrifying that it leaves everyone asking, could this have been stopped? Before we dive into the twists and turns of this harrowing tale, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Here we explore the darkest corners of human relationships, where love, betrayal, and obsession collide in shocking ways. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Ethan was a 28-year-old rising star in the tech industry, a software developer whose innovative ideas and work ethic were quickly earning him recognition. He had recently moved to the city, excited for a fresh start in both his career and personal life. Friends described him as the kind of guy who instantly made people feel at ease. His laid-back charm, quick wit, and genuine kindness were qualities that drew people to him. Despite his success, Ethan remained humble. He spent his weekends hiking with friends, volunteering at animal shelters, and dreaming about building a future filled with love, stability, and a family of his own. When he met Cassandra at a charity gala, everything seemed to fall into place. Her bold, self-assured personality perfectly complemented his quieter, more relaxed demeanor. Ethan thought he'd found the perfect partner, a strong, successful woman who could challenge and inspire him. Cassandra, 32, was the embodiment of ambition. A highly respected police detective, she had worked her way up the ranks with a combination of intelligence, grit, and determination. Known for her sharp instincts and relentless dedication, Cassandra had solved some of the city's most challenging cases. She was often hailed as a hero by her colleagues, a woman who lived to protect and serve. But beneath her polished exterior was a deeply insecure woman. Cassandra's childhood had been marked by instability, absent parents, failed relationships, and a constant fear of abandonment. These experiences had shaped her into someone who craved control in all areas of her life. The moment she met Ethan, she felt an immediate pull. He was kind, gentle, and everything she thought she needed to fill the void in her heart. For the first time in years, Cassandra allowed herself to hope that she had found someone who wouldn't leave her. From the very beginning, their relationship was fast and intense. Cassandra swept Ethan off his feet with her confidence, passion, and unwavering attention. She was fiercely protective, often telling Ethan, "I'll always have your back, no matter." Ethan, in turn, brought a sense of joy and lightheartedness to Cassandra's life. His humor and easygoing nature were a stark contrast to the high-pressure, often grim realities of her job. Together, they seemed like the perfect match, an unstoppable duo with a love that burned bright. But as their relationship progressed, subtle warning signs began to surface. Cassandra's protectiveness gradually morphed into possessiveness. She insisted on knowing where Ethan was at all times, who he was with, and what he was doing. If he went out with friends or stayed late at work, she would flood his phone with calls and texts, demanding reassurance that he wasn't ignoring or avoiding her. Cassandra's behavior didn't stop there. She would often drop by, unannounced, using her position as a detective to justify her actions. "I was in the area for work," she'd say with a smile, but Ethan couldn't help but notice how often she seemed to be in his neighborhood. At first, Ethan chalked it up to her high-stress job and her natural tendency to take charge. He admired her dedication and brushed off her behavior as a sign of how much she cared for him. She's just protective, he told himself. What Ethan didn't realize was that Cassandra's fixation on him was growing. Beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect relationship, her need for control was transforming into something far darker, a dangerous obsession that would eventually consume them both. What had started as Cassandra's fierce devotion to Ethan quickly spiraled into something far more unsettling. Her need to be in control of every aspect of his life began to erode the trust and freedom that their relationship once had. It began subtly at first. Cassandra would casually ask about his plans, his friends, or his work schedule, but over time her questions turned into interrogations. If Ethan mentioned hanging out with his co-workers or catching up with an old friend, Cassandra's smile would tighten and she would launch into a string of probing questions. Who was there? Was it just guys? Why didn't you invite me? Ethan found himself making excuses to avoid conflict. He stopped mentioning certain friends or plans altogether, hoping to spare himself the inevitable barrage of suspicion. But Cassandra was always one step ahead. Her position as a police detective gave her access to tools most people could only imagine. She began abusing her authority, crossing professional boundaries in the name of keeping tabs on Ethan. When he claimed he was at a certain bar with friends, Cassandra would later run surveillance footage to confirm it. She even tracked his car using license plate checks, justifying her actions with cold logic. "I'm a cop. It's not like I'm stalking you, I'm just making sure you're safe." Ethan's unease grew with each new violation of his privacy. One evening, he found her waiting outside his apartment after he had stayed late at work. When he asked how she had known he was home, she brushed it off with a casual, "I was just in the area." But her escalating behavior didn't stop there. Ethan started receiving texts at all hours of the day. "Where are you? Who are you with? Why didn't you answer my call?" Even during moments when he was trying to relax, Cassandra's presence loomed over him like a dark cloud. Despite his mounting discomfort, Ethan hesitated to confront her directly. Every time he tried to bring up her controlling tendencies, Cassandra would dismiss his concerns with a charming smile and a disarming excuse. "I'm only like this because I care so much about you. You have no idea how dangerous this city can be. I just want to protect you." Her words would soothe him in the moment, but deep down Ethan knew something wasn't right. One evening, while scrolling through his phone, Ethan stumbled upon a message thread with an old college friend, Kate. The conversation was entirely innocent, catching up on life and reminiscing about old times, but Cassandra discovered the thread before Ethan could delete it. Her reaction was explosive. "Who is she?" she demanded, her voice shaking with fury. Ethan tried to explain, but Cassandra wasn't listening. She accused him of lying, of hiding things from her, of betraying her. "I've given you everything, Ethan," she screamed. "How dare you disrespect me like this?" For the first time, Ethan saw a side of Cassandra that terrified him. Her eyes were wild, her voice laced with venom. She wasn't the woman he had fallen in love with. She was someone completely unrecognizable. The tension in their relationship became unbearable. Cassandra's constant surveillance, her outbursts of jealousy, and her unpredictable mood swings left Ethan feeling trapped and suffocated. He no longer recognized the happy, carefree person he used to be. One night, after another heated argument about his lack of commitment, Ethan finally broke down. He called his best friend Brian and confided everything. "She doesn't trust me," Ethan said, his voice filled with exhaustion. "She's controlling every part of my life, and I don't know how to stop it." Brian listened patiently and then asked the question Ethan had been avoiding. "Why are you still with her?" Ethan didn't have an answer. He realized he had been clinging to the hope that Cassandra might change, that the woman he fell in love with was still there beneath the surface. But deep down he knew the truth. Their relationship was toxic, and staying in it was slowly destroying him. Determined to reclaim his life, Ethan decided it was time to end things with Cassandra. He carefully chose a public cafe as the setting, hoping the neutral environment would prevent any potential outbursts. As he sat at the table waiting for her, his palms were sweaty, and his heart raced with anticipation. When Cassandra arrived, she greeted him with a warm smile, completely unaware of what was about to happen. The moment was tense, as though the air in the cafe had been sucked out, leaving only a suffocating silence. Ethan sat across from Cassandra, fidgeting with his coffee cup as he searched for the right words. She stared at him, her piercing eyes giving away nothing. "I care about you, Cassandra," Ethan began, and his voice trembling slightly. "But this isn't working for me anymore. I feel like I've lost who I am, and I think we need to end this." For a moment, Cassandra didn't react. She tilted her head slightly, her lips pressing into a thin line. Then, without breaking eye contact, she asked, in a voice so calm it sent chills down Ethan's spine, "Are you sure this is what you want?" Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. "I'm sorry, but yes." Cassandra leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. After a long pause, she said, "You think you can just walk away from me? After everything I've done for you, after everything we've shared?" Her tone was even, but there was an undercurrent of menace that Ethan couldn't ignore. He forced himself to stand his ground, nodding once more. "I need to do this, Cassandra. I'm sorry." Cassandra's eyes narrowed slightly, and she leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You're making a mistake, a big mistake. You'll regret this, Ethan, mark my words." With that she stood, smoothing her jacket as if nothing had happened. Without another glance at Ethan, she turned and walked out of the cafe. Ethan sat there for a moment, frozen in place. A part of him felt relieved that the breakup was over, but an even bigger part of him was consumed by an unsettling sense of dread. Something about Cassandra's reaction didn't feel right. Cassandra's world shattered the moment she walked out of that cafe. She had been a woman in control of her career, her life, and her relationship. Now, for the first time, she felt powerless, and that was something she couldn't accept. Her thoughts became consumed by Ethan. She replayed their relationship over and over in her mind, convincing herself that he had been ungrateful for her love and sacrifices. In her eyes, she wasn't the problem, he was. Determined to win him back, Cassandra crossed lines that even she knew were unethical. Using her position as a police officer, she began to monitor Ethan's every move. Cassandra accessed traffic cameras near Ethan's workplace, watching for his car to confirm where he went after work. She used police databases to pull his phone records, analyzing every number he called or texted, searching for evidence of someone else in his life. Late at night, Cassandra would park outside Ethan's apartment in her unmarked police car, watching his windows for any sign of activity. Ethan started to notice the signs of Cassandra's obsession almost immediately. One night, as he left work, he spotted a familiar car following him. Another time, he found Cassandra's favorite perfume lingering in his apartment hallway. At first, he tried to dismiss it as paranoia, but the evidence became undeniable. The obsession soon turned malicious. Ethan began receiving strange, anonymous texts. "You think you're free, but you're not. No one will ever love you like I do." One evening, Ethan returned home to find his apartment ransacked. Nothing was stolen, but Cassandra had left a chilling reminder. His college photo album was open on the coffee table, with a note attached to one picture. "Remember when you were happy? You'll never be again, without me." Ethan was horrified. He knew Cassandra was behind it, but confronting her seemed like a dangerous gamble. Despite the fear that loomed over him, Ethan tried to reclaim his life. He began dating Lila, a kind-hearted and bubbly woman who brought joy back into his life. For the first time in months, Ethan felt like he could breathe again. But Cassandra saw Lila as a threat. The first time she spotted Ethan and Lila together, laughing over dinner at a restaurant, her rage boiled over. Cassandra sat in her car outside the restaurant, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. She watched as Lila leaned across the table to kiss Ethan, and something inside her snapped. Cassandra started making her presence known in unsettling ways. One evening, as Ethan and Lila walked hand in hand down a quiet street, Cassandra appeared out of nowhere, stepping into their path. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were filled with fury. "Who's this, Ethan? A replacement already? You move on fast, don't you?" Ethan tightened his grip on Lila's hand, his heart racing. "Cassandra, leave us alone." But Cassandra just smiled, a dangerous glint in her eyes. "You think she can make you happy? You'll come crawling back to me. You always will." She walked away, but the encounter left Ethan and Lila shaken. Ethan finally decided to take legal action. He filed a restraining order against Cassandra, outlining her stalking and harassment. But Cassandra's position as a police officer complicated matters. Her colleagues were hesitant to investigate one of their own, and Cassandra used her badge as a shield, dismissing Ethan's claims as baseless. When she was served with the restraining order, Cassandra laughed. "You think a piece of paper can stop me?" she said to Ethan when she cornered him on the street one evening. Ethan's blood ran cold as she leaned in close and whispered, "You'll always be mine, Ethan. No one else can have you." The situation escalated to the point where Ethan could no longer ignore the danger. He installed security cameras in his apartment and changed his daily routine to avoid Cassandra. But no matter what he did, she always seemed to find him. The tension reached its peak one evening when Ethan found a single rose on his doorstep, accompanied by a note that read, "If I can't have you, no one can." Terrified, Ethan called the police, but Cassandra's connections within the department ensured that nothing was done. He felt completely isolated, living in constant fear of what she might do next. Ethan had no idea that Cassandra's obsession was about to take a deadly turn. It was a cold, quiet evening when Ethan returned to his apartment. He was exhausted but relieved after spending the night laughing with friends, a rare moment of peace in what had become a storm of fear and anxiety. As he approached his front door, a chill ran down his spine. The door was slightly ajar, the lock broken. Ethan hesitated, his heart pounding in his chest. He had taken every precaution: security cameras, changed locks, even filing the restraining order. But deep down he knew none of it would stop Cassandra. Summoning his courage, Ethan pushed the door open slowly. The apartment was dimly lit, and the air was eerily still. As he stepped inside, his eyes fell on her. Cassandra was sitting in his armchair, her police-issued firearm resting on her lap. She looked nothing like the composed detective he had once admired. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes wild and bloodshot, and her expression was a terrifying blend of rage and despair. "You're late," she said, her voice low and venomous. Ethan froze. "Cassandra, what are you doing here?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Her lips curled into a bitter smile. "What am I doing here? I'm here because you belong to me, Ethan. Did you really think you could just walk away, start over, be with her?" Ethan cautiously stepped further into the room, his hands raised in an attempt to de-escalate the situation. "Cassandra, please, this isn't you. You don't have to do this." But his words only seemed to fuel her anger. Cassandra stood abruptly, gripping the gun tightly. Her hands were shaking, but her aim never wavered. "Do you know what you've done to me, Ethan?" she spat, her voice rising. "You humiliated me. You made me look weak. I gave you everything, and you threw it away like it was nothing." Ethan tried to reason with her, inching closer as he spoke. "Cassandra, I didn't mean to hurt you. I just wanted us both to be happy. This isn't the way to fix things." But Cassandra wasn't listening. Her emotions were spiraling out of control, her breathing ragged as tears streamed down her face. "I gave up everything for you," she sobbed. "And now you think you can replace me with her, that girl? Oh." At that moment the front door creaked open. Lila stepped inside, alarmed by the open door and the muffled voices she had heard from outside. "Ethan?" she called out, her voice tentative. Cassandra's head snapped toward the sound, and her face contorted with rage as she saw Lila standing in the doorway. "You!" Cassandra screamed, pointing the gun at Lila. "You think you can take him from me? You think you're better than me?" Lila froze, her eyes wide with terror. "Please put the gun down," she begged. "You don't have to do this." Ethan took advantage of Cassandra's distraction to lunge toward her, grabbing her arm in an attempt to wrestle the gun away. The room erupted into chaos as the two struggled for control of the weapon. Cassandra screamed incoherently, her strength fueled by desperation and fury. Ethan fought with everything he had, but Cassandra was relentless. "Let go, Ethan," she shrieked. "I won't let you leave me." Leela watched in horror, unsure of what to do. She reached for her phone, frantically dialing 911 as the struggle continued. "Help! There's someone with a gun!" she cried into the phone, her voice shaking. Meanwhile, Ethan managed to knock the gun from Cassandra's hand, sending it skidding across the floor. But Cassandra wasn't done. She clawed at him, her nails digging into his skin as she screamed, "If I can't have you, no one can!" Ethan scrambled to retrieve the gun, but Cassandra was faster. She snatched it up and pointed it at him, her hands trembling. "Cassandra, please," Ethan pleaded, his voice breaking. "You don't have to do this. We can get you help. This doesn't have to end like this." But Cassandra's mind was made up. Her finger tightened on the trigger, and she whispered, "Goodbye, Ethan." The gunshot rang out, deafening in the confined space. Leela screamed as Ethan collapsed to the floor, blood pooling beneath him. Cassandra stood over him, the gun still in her hand, her expression blank. The reality of what she had done seemed to hit her all at once. Her knees buckled and she sank to the floor, cradling the gun in her lap as tears streamed down her face. Moments later, sirens wailed in the distance. Police officers burst into the apartment, guns drawn. They found Cassandra sitting on the floor, her hands raised in surrender. "He's gone," she said quietly, her voice hollow. "I didn't mean to, but he's gone." The officers handcuffed her and led her away, leaving Lila sobbing over Ethan's lifeless body. As the blue and red lights of police cruisers flashed outside the apartment, neighbors gathered in the hallway, whispering about the chaos they had just heard. When the officers entered, they were met with a haunting sight. Cassandra was kneeling beside Ethan's lifeless body, gently holding his hand, her face streaked with tears. She rocked back and forth, murmuring, "I'm sorry, Ethan. I had no choice. You were supposed to stay with me." Cassandra slowly raised her hands and turned to the officers with an eerie calm. "I'm not going to fight," she said softly. "He was everything to me." As they cuffed her and led her out, Cassandra turned back for one last look at Ethan. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the words chilled everyone in the room. "I'll always love you." The murder of Ethan at the hands of a police officer sent shockwaves through the community and quickly became national news. Headlines painted Cassandra as the obsessed cop, a tragic figure whose descent into darkness ended in cold-blooded murder. Reporters swarmed the courthouse during her arraignment, cameras flashing as Cassandra, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, was escorted inside. The media frenzy dissected every detail of the case, from Cassandra's exemplary career to the horrifying crime that ended Ethan's life. Ethan's family, devastated by the loss, spoke out in interviews, describing him as a kind and gentle soul who had been taken far too soon. His mother, her voice breaking, said, "He trusted her, he loved her, and she used that trust to destroy him." Meanwhile, Cassandra's former colleagues expressed disbelief and shame. "She was one of the best detectives we had," one officer said, but no one knew what she was capable of. The public's outrage grew as details emerged about how Cassandra had used her position as a detective to stalk and intimidate Ethan. Many questioned how someone with her authority and access to sensitive information could have gone unchecked for so long. When Cassandra's trial began, the courtroom was packed with reporters, legal experts, and spectators hungry for justice. The prosecution painted her as a manipulative, obsessive woman who had used her badge to control and ultimately kill the man she claimed to love. They presented evidence of her stalking behavior, surveillance footage she had accessed illegally, phone records showing her obsessive calls, and testimonies from Ethan's friends who described how terrified he had been in the weeks leading up to his death. Leela, still traumatized, took the stand to recount the events of that fateful night. Her voice trembled as she described the moment Cassandra pulled the trigger. "She didn't just kill Ethan," Lila said, tears streaming down her face. "She destroyed all of us." Cassandra's defense team argued that she had been mentally unstable, driven by years of trauma and untreated psychological issues. They claimed she acted in a moment of emotional desperation, not premeditation. But the jury saw through the facade. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, they found Cassandra guilty of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. Months after Cassandra was incarcerated, Ethan's mother received a letter in the mail. The handwriting on the envelope was unmistakable. It was Cassandra's. With trembling hands, she opened it and read the chilling words. "Dear Mrs. Reed, I want you to know that I loved Ethan more than anything in this world. I never meant for it to end this way, but no one else could love him like I did. Not you, not his friends, and certainly not her. Ethan will always be mine, in this life and the next. Forever yours, Cassandra." The letter sent shockwaves through Ethan's family. Despite being behind bars, Cassandra's obsession had not diminished. It was a stark reminder that, even from prison, her hold on Ethan's memory remained disturbingly strong. This devastating story is a haunting reminder of how love, when tainted by control and obsession, can spiral into unspeakable tragedy. Ethan's longing for freedom and a fresh start collided with Cassandra's inability to let go of the relationship. Her obsession consumed her, stripping away her sense of duty, morality, and humanity, ultimately leading to a heartbreakingly irreversible outcome. It's chilling to think that someone entrusted with protecting others could use their power to manipulate, stalk, and harm. Ethan's story isn't just one of love gone wrong, it's a cautionary tale about recognizing the warning signs and understanding the lengths to which unchecked obsession can go. This was not just a crime of passion, it was a calculated descent into darkness, fueled by Cassandra's inability to relinquish control. Do you think Ethan could have done anything differently to protect himself from Cassandra's wrath? Were there missed opportunities for law enforcement to intervene before the situation escalated to a deadly conclusion? And most importantly, how should the justice system handle cases where someone in a position of power becomes a danger to those around them? If this story left you stunned, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more gripping true crime tales that dive deep into the darkest sides of love, betrayal, and human emotion. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you have done if you were in Ethan's shoes? Let's discuss how society and the justice system can prevent tragedies like this from happening in the future.